to the Co-Movement Gym podcast, where we inspire people to move and live courageously. Welcome to the show, Dave.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. So I want to dive right in today. What does an average training week look like for you now?
Good question. It changes quite a bit. So first I'll say that I try to do something every day. I try to do some kind of movement. Handstands are a portion of every training session that I do. Just something that I not only enjoy doing, but obviously with as much teaching that I do and just trying to make sure that my body continues to stay capable and to be able to show demos and do things like that. But with the kids, now having kids and being able to trying to run a business and trying to manage all those things, I would say that the pandemic and having to stay home has, I'd say, maybe interrupted my normal training a little bit more than I would have done prior. But I'm still trying to do something every day. My sessions normally are between 30 minutes and 90 minutes, depending on what I have time for. And in an ideal setting, I try to set at least 90 minutes aside, but that's rare with everything else going on. But it's a variety of training. I'd say it's mostly around CrossFit style training. I do a lot of CrossFit.
Really?
Yeah. It's kind of something that's a big part of my training. I really enjoy it. I'd say that I don't attack CrossFit workouts the way that maybe most people think CrossFit workouts are attacked from the intensity side of things. My perspective is more an 80% intensity, making sure that movement quality is at the forefront of every workout, every exercise. But I like the way the workouts are structured. I like the community aspect. And now we've built a little home gym here at my house. And so I'm able to do most at home, which is great.
Do you have a specific, I'm curious, like blog or template that you're following, or are you getting programming from someone, or do you make it up as you go along? Do you block out like microcycles? Like how do you determine what you're doing specifically?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'd say that I do try to attend one of the gyms here in town where I live in Oregon now, CrossFit Tiger, and they have a great community. They have a great coaching staff. And so I try to go into the gym as much as I can there, and I just follow whatever the program is. And then I supplement it with my own handstand work. But if I am at home, I'll do a variety of things. A couple of people from our Power Monkey staff, we're always putting workouts together to kind of test off of one another. So I'll test out the workouts that we're normally putting up and see what everyone else is doing. And I've also started to incorporate some more kettlebell training in. We've built out some of our kettlebell staff with Power Monkey. Now we have Power Monkey Kettlebell, which was formerly Kettlebell RX, which is some of the top kettlebell instructors in the US. Jeff Martone kind of leads it. Zach Filer and AJ Haffey. They're awesome. They're part of our Power Monkey staff, and they've started to run some courses, and I attended one of them recently. And so I have a bunch of kettlebells here, and it's been a big part of what I do now. I find it to be easy to implement, something that supplements the gymnastics side really well. So I try to scatter that in pretty regularly now as well.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of kettlebells also. What movements are you really gravitating to when you're training with them?
So there's a few things. I've started to put in one of the recommendations that they've found a lot of success with is doing 200 front squats a week.
Really?
Yeah. So and you can split them up however you want. I'm really, I've seen some good progress with this over the past month or so. So the recommendation for males is to do it with 253 pounds and break them up. Normally they recommend trying to do one heavy day and then break up the rest as needed. So I've started to do that as much as I possibly can. They've seen a lot of benefits, not only in, obviously the lower half being built out, quad, posterior chain, but there's a lot of actually benefits to upper body, the front rack position being obviously being able to stabilize that weight, being independent weight has showed a lot of benefits to hanging exercises, to pulling exercises. And I'm actually seeing even some benefits in my handstands. So it's been one of the things that's been pretty consistent with me. And I've also started to implement, not every, every so often, but some 10-minute long cycle work. So that's been super helpful as well, just to build a little bit of some consistency around some more longer duration type work, which has been really fun to play around with.
Are you going with 2 kettlebells or 1 kettlebell with those 10-minute long cycles?
Single right now. I've started to work a little bit on some double kettlebell work, but I'm doing only single right now, which has been kind of a good kind of introductory to me. I'm still kind of learning.
Yeah, for sure. How are you breaking up that 200 reps? Cause I'm really intrigued by that. I do a lot of jujitsu.
Mm-hmm.
And I have found that the kettlebell front squat with 2 front
Yep.
rack, with the handles touching
Yep.
is one of the best full body exercises that for that sport is translates, I think, dramatically.
Yeah.
So I might tackle that. That's really cool. Are you how are you breaking that up? Like, what's a session look like?
So I try to do at least one day out of the week. I try to do 100 reps.
Okay.
So I'll break them up however I feel I'm capable. Normally I try to do between 10 to 20 reps per set. I won't go over 20 just because it's overly challenging for me. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure that my form stays intact. And then the other days are kind of scattered depending on what else I have planned, whatever I have time for. But normally it becomes part of my either pre-workout, my warm-up, or some of my post-accessory work. Mm-hmm. So I'll try to hit normally between 20 and 30 reps scattered out throughout the rest of the week. But normally I try to hit a session where they're about 100 and 150 reps. I try to get a big chunk in one day per week.
Are you doing additional lower body training throughout the week other than say your general mobility and whatnot? Like, are you still hitting like deadlifts, swings, like that kind of stuff in addition to the 200 squats?
I would, my weightlifting team here would be very upset at me if I said I'm not doing it. Our weightlifting coaches are a big part of what we do. Chad Vaughn, Mike Service, Vanessa McCoy, Cheryl Hayworth, they're amazing. They're all incredible athletes in their own right and have been definitely impressing on myself and our community the importance of balancing it out and the importance of getting strong within some of those lifts. Now, I'm not doing, for CrossFit purposes, lightweight snatches and things like that. But I would say that, I do have a barbell and all the plates here at home. So I am doing some deadlift work. Normally, any lifts that I'm doing are based around deadlift work, some front squat and some back squats. That's basically the extent of what I'm doing. I'm not doing very much clean and jerks. If they are, they're lighter weight. I'm not working towards any 1 rep maxes. Most of my rep maxes are built based off of maybe 3 to 5 rep maxes, nothing really off of 1 rep max for me right now. So I stay more towards about 50 to 70% range of my 1 rep max for a majority of the lifts that I do, but they're probably scattered in about 2 to 3 days a week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you have, with your handstand practice, do you have like baselines that you're trying to maintain, or are you pursuing something new now? As far as like, I saw on your Instagram a few weeks ago, there was a max press handstand challenge, which I want to try that. I don't know where I'll be. I think my record right now is 6, which isn't too many, but is there anything, because you said you try to practice handstands almost daily. Mm-hmm. Are you in maintenance mode? Are you going after something?
So again, it's all dependent on what my time allows for. If in a situation where I didn't have to manage the kids and manage the business, I would do handstands much more often, would have goals that would be a lot more lofty than they are right now. But with that being said, I personally love being inverted. I love training handstands. It's something that's easy to do. You don't need a lot of space. You don't need additional equipment. So for me, it's something that no matter where I am, I travel a ton. It's something that I can always just do. And I love that aspect of it. It's always available. But I do have a couple of goals that I'm still trying to shoot after here. My 1-arm handstand has been something that I've been working on much more over the course of the last 2 years. It's gotten much better. I'm sure as a body weight calisthenics, maybe handstand performer, you're aware of Yuval on hand. Yeah. Yuval is a friend of mine, and we competed against each other in the gymnastics world for many years, and he's someone that I very much look up to in the gymnastics and handstand world, and he's given me some stuff that has been very helpful to implement on a regular basis that has helped my 1-arm work. But on top of that, I'm still trying to pursue my 10-minute freestanding goal. Freestanding no walk. I've been edging closer to that. Finally surpassed the 9-minute mark. Maybe
you did.
Yeah, so I'm at 9 minutes 1 second now. So I've been slowly edging closer to it, which is encouraging to me. I'm in my 40s now, and my handstand have actually continued to get better, which is really encouraging. I think most people think you hit 40 and things start to degrade. but it doesn't necessarily have to be the case. I think a lot of it has to do with the type of training that you're doing, the consistency, how you're approaching things, what you're doing outside of the gym, diet, nutrition, sleep, all those things. But it's been improving, which has been great. And you mentioned the press to handstand. Press to handstands are something like I'm pretty comfortable upside down. Like I'd say that my strength in a handstand is much better than it was when I was a competitive gymnast. And the presses, one of the things I do every so often is I'll do 100 presses for time.
Wow.
So I basically, I just don't stop. I just keep going as quickly as possible. And I do that every once in a while. I just kind of test what my time looks like. And it's not something that's overly challenging for me. And so I was thinking about it the other day, and I was just like, you know, when I do 100 presses, or if I did a session the other day and I did 200 presses, and it was like, somebody heard 200 presses and they're like, oh my God, how do you do that? It would take me all day. It takes me like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, sure.
And so I've set a goal to try to do a session with 1,000 presses. So
oh dude, yeah.
That's going to be my next press goal, which I'm going to try to achieve. Maybe I'll try it this weekend. We'll see. I'm not traveling this weekend, so I might throw it into my Sunday session, a little Easter treat.
Yeah, man, that's so cool. Like how you're approaching some of these is how I approach some of my own individual challenges. And it's really cool to hear you say that. Like, you know, on my 39th birthday last year, I decided to do 39 handstand push-ups for time, freestanding. And so it's like, and I'm going to be 40 this year. And so I'm going to go for 40. I'm trying to see, like, I'm trying to outrun age, right? Like, we both are. So I want to see how long I can ride that curve, 41, 42, 43. And the time doesn't really matter as much. I think it's more like the volume, right? Like you said, the 1,000 press handstands. But yeah, that makes training like really, really interesting. And your handstand, I saw your video, the 6 minute and 37-second handstand with the CrossFit game event there.
Right.
Yeah, that got in our gym here at Co-Movement, that got a lot of attention. You know, we've got one guy here, he's a trainer, full-time, cool, really cool guy. He's a rock climber, and he's at 2 minutes and I think 30 seconds with one set in a handstand.
That's great.
And, you know, we're now sort of going after a 3 minutes for time in a freestand. And yesterday I tested it. I did it in 4:45.
That's great. That's really great. Were you strategic with how you broke it up, or was it max time, come down, shake out, max time?
Yeah. So what I did a 1 minute clean, like no problem, shook it out, 10-second rest. Then I jumped back right into another 30-second one. So at 1:40, I was halfway done.
All right.
But with me, being that my handstand practice isn't a priority, like I'm testing training 1 or 2 days a week with it, I fill with lactic acid faster. My endurance isn't great with it. But yeah, so hearing you say 10 minutes is like, man, that is, that's pretty sick. Do you have a strategy, Dave? Like, I noticed in your video, I was watching sort of some of the details with your position and how you're shifting somewhat side to side. And then you lose your hollow a little bit, and then you straighten your hollow. Can you talk about that? Because I'm very interested about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really important point. You're viewing something more from a trained eye than maybe someone who's just, you know, a casual observer looking at a handstand. And it's something that's really important to note, because when we teach handstands, primarily we're teaching it with position as one of the major components. And I look at handstands as kind of having three basic components that all need to be trained equally. Most people, especially with people that we work in our world of CrossFit, are using the wall for a majority of their training, whether it's wall walks or handstand push-ups or holds. So they're focusing on just getting their shoulders strong enough to be able to hold themselves in the inverted position. They're working on the strength component. Not even strategically, they're just working on it kind of haphazardly. They're not focusing at all on two other fundamental pieces: position and stability, balance. And I think that a well-rounded handstand needs to be focused on all three of those points if you want to be able to do it at a highest level. And that's really the way that we we train everything towards the highest level version of that movement. So a handstand at the highest level, we start thinking about one arms. We start thinking about doing handstands on rings, freestanding. There are a lot of other variations that go beyond just, can I hold a handstand up against the wall? So with that being said, the things that we emphasize are position. Can we create alignment? Can we create a stacked position where all body parts are really in one nice, efficient line? Now, when you're doing handstands for position and for stability, very important. When you're doing handstands for duration, things will change. When you're doing handstands for long periods of time, things will change that go against what we might want to see when we're talking about a perfectly stacked handstand. And what I mean by this is, if you think about just doing it on your feet and you're trying to stand 10 minutes in one position on your feet, there's going to be some shifting going on, right? You're going to start feeling some aches in your hips, or maybe, you might feel like your feet are getting a little achy. So you'll inevitably start to shift your weight here and there, shake your foot out a little bit, move your weight around to be able to give some rest or conserve some energy in certain areas. So what I try to do when I'm doing long duration handstands is exactly that. One, it's like I mentioned, conservation of energy as much as you possibly can. So if you look at my lower half, whenever I'm doing long handstands, I'm disengaging essentially. I'm not activating anything that's not necessary for me to stay in one place. So I try not to create muscle activation, anything that's not involved in the handstand. The rest just basically is there as a stabilizer. That's basically it. Additionally, there are a few different shifts that need to happen. So there are shifts laterally, and there are shifts forward to back. Now, the shifts laterally is where a lot of the one-arm handstand work has become very, very critical for me to be able to spend some time to give some, to alleviate some of the stress from shoulder to shoulder. It allows you to actually stay inverted for longer periods of time. That should make fairly, common sense. The forward to back action is very critical as well. And why this is important is because I think most people's limitation with longer handstands it turns into a mobility issue. They're limited in terms of their shoulder flexion. They can only open to a particular range. And it normally comes down to, is my thoracic spine a big limiting factor here? But what we normally see is even a bigger limiting factor is underarm soft tissue mobility issue. My lats, my teres, my tricep, even pec and bicep become a limiting factor in being able to get to and beyond 180 degrees from that shoulder angle. So what ends up happening is you rely completely on your anterior delt for your muscle activation for your handstand.
Sure.
Which is a dominant muscle there, but it shouldn't be the only muscle involved when you're doing long handstand holds. You can get away with it with short handstands because anything under 2 minutes, 3 minutes max, you can probably build the strength within that muscle group. As soon as you start getting fatigue in there, as soon as capacity becomes an issue, muscle endurance becomes an issue, you want to start incorporating new muscle groups. So by being able to rock your shoulders in a planching action forward or towards, more open shoulder, working towards something like a Mexican, further and further open, you start getting rear delt involvement. You start getting traps, you start getting upper back. That gives you the ability to rest the anterior delt to be able to give it a chance to recover. So this is a long-winded answer to your question, but essentially what I'm trying to do is conserve energy as much as possible, shift weight in all different directions, and give the ability of different muscle groups to be involved so that I can actually give them a chance to rest as needed.
I'm going to try that next time, because what you were saying about like holding that perfect line, when I'm testing a max hold or that 3-minute challenge, I'm really trying to have a solid line the whole time, but I never really thought of just sort of relaxing the abs, right? And maybe getting a little lower back arch or going into a little candlestick on the right side, left side. I can't do a one-arm handstand. I got down to doing a one arm with a pinky assist on the other side, but I was never able to lift off. I haven't pursued it in the last few years, but I'm going to try that, Dave. That's really solid advice.
And just something to add. So when a funny little story, when I train, I also train longer holds up against the wall just to kind of build some capacity and some endurance there. And the first time that I hit 30 minutes up against the wall was like a big day for me. I was like, okay, I did half an hour up against the wall. It's a big kind of milestone for me. I'm so glad I was able to make it. On that day, I was looking on Instagram, and the Moscow Circus School that day had put up their new handstand freestanding record. And it was two 13-year-old girls, I believe. Might be mistaken, and go back and try to find that post. But two girls freestanding had beat the circus school record, and one was 38 minutes and the other was 45 minutes. And so some of it is always, you know, understanding perspective in terms of always someone out there who's going to be able to do something a little bit more, something to achieve. But the thing that I wanted to point out is that their handstand holds were contortion type handstand holds. They weren't gymnastics type holds, meaning there was a severe arch in the back. There was a lot of planching going on. There's a lot of movement. There's a lot of one arm holds. There's a minute or two handstand one arm holds where they shift back and forth. A lot of variation. So anytime you're going to see someone do a really long handstand hold, it's going to be with variation in terms of position. The big distinction is being able to do those things with purpose and intention rather than just them happening haphazardly. And I think that's a really important point between someone just saying, okay, Dave did a terrible handstand. I'm just going to mimic that same thing because he's supposed to be good at it. And if he's doing it that way, then it should be okay.